My name is Max Stein, and I love video games.
I'm the Mega Buck. I really love video games.
And I'm Raph, and I also love video games.
And welcome to the Game Treasure Podcast, where we talk treasured video games of yesterday, today, and tomorrow. This week, our topic of conversation is Metroidvania games. You
Ooh,
probably tell that
baby.
by the title of this episode. Also known as search action games in Japan, which if I'm wrong about that, then so is the Bessie's Rush Frushtick.
That's cool. I've never heard that term.
Yeah,
before.
Well,
it's a Japanese thing from what I understand. This is a subgenre of the action game, but we'll get more on that later. But first, RetroGameTreasure.com and the Mega Buck are going to take us back in time this week with the Retro Zone. Buck, hit me.
Let's go back in time. This one is a favorite of mine. Created by a studio who's really famous now. Wasn't as famous back then. Did a lot of old Baldur's Gate, Neverwinter Nights games. How about we create a turn-based, semi-turn-based RPG in not just any sci-fi world, but in the world of Star Wars. That's right.
Oh,
KOTOR, Knights of the Old Republic.
damn good game.
For the Xbox in this case. BioWare, obviously, is the developer I'm talking about. Went on to do Mass Effect and lots of other amazing games. Did either of you guys play this?
Yes,
absolutely,
holy shit,
yeah.
incredible.
KOTOR is, one of my favorite games.
I want to replay it because when I did play it, I was quite young, and I don't think I really got all of the because it's got a fantastic storyline.
Oh, I never
they
beat
both
it,
do.
but it's
Oh, really?
I'm like
Wait.
I've gotten to like very close to the end of that game, and I still have my file there that I
Like
haven't finished.
spoilery to the end, or like
Right,
and
I know the
about
spoiler. I know the
Okay.
spoiler.
Yeah, yeah,
I know
yeah.
the end of
big
this game
spoiler,
is
yeah.
Really
whoa.
cool. Yeah.
Well, the ending I don't know, but I know that there is a big spoiler, like pretty
okay.
good chunk of the
There
way
is
in
a
the
big
game. Yeah,
choice
so-
you make at the end. We'll say that, kids.
All
Good
right.
thing
I have
we
a
didn't-
feeling that I know.
They made a sequel as well. Second one's good, maybe not as good as this one, but still really great. I was plucking through both these. I'm like, I want to do the first KOTOR. I'm like, and I'm in the warehouse, and I'm like, oh my god, we have like 10 copies of KOTOR too. I'm like, well, that's
sick.
pretty cool. But Xbox and sci-fi and RPG on your list this month, kids. If you never played this game, it is similar if you played the Mass Effect games where it's kind of semi-turn based. You can pause the action anytime. You can buffer like 3, 4, 5 actions for each of your characters.
Right.
It's so cool because you have force powers and lightsabers, and you have, if I remember correctly, there's 3 different types of Jedi, and there's one that can like manipulate droids, one that has like offensive force powers, and one that has
That's
like
right,
defensive force powers.
Yeah, you
something
have the
along that
more
line, right?
like combat heavy Jedi Knights. You have the
Mhm.
more like force power heavy Knights, and then you also have like a more engineer kind of like a class. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, look, I'm a nerd, but I'm not like a Star Wars or Star Trek specific kind of nerd. You know,
Right.
It wasn't. I didn't want to play this because oh my gosh, I love Star Wars so much. I just heard how great it was back in the day, and I played it. And holy crap!
What's the name of the sociopathic android in that
Oh
game?
yeah.
Oh, HK-47.
yeah.
What a fantastic name for a robot. First of all, obviously, you know.
Yeah, and he's
a
also a
reference-
dick, which is great because
Yeah.
not often are droids like just total complete dicks.
Right.
Absolutely wants to kill everybody.
Not to put you on the spot, what was the release year on this game? Is it on the back of the
2005.
box? 2005.
2003. I'm sorry, 2003. Jade Empire
Okay.
was 2005. I
Great
know
game.
you
This
love
is-
that one.
Yeah.
A unique choice for a Retro Zone because it's incredibly playable now in 2024. You
Yes.
can find it on almost everything. You can
Mhm.
play it on a mobile phone if you want.
Sure.
Yeah.
But if
And
you
they-
like an original, it's a great way to do it.
They're talking.
Hell yeah.
There's
Yeah.
been rumors about that remake, right? Forever and ever.
It got
Something.
canceled,
Something they've
I
been wanting
think.
to
Yeah.
reskin it or whatever.
They did that. They did that high res release skin
Did
for
they?
like the Steam version or something. Yeah,
Okay.
they like shadow dropped that like a couple years ago for no reason at all.
Yeah, I love the preloading the moves of this game. That Mass Effect
Right.
does that as well, right? I know the first one does it at least.
Mass Effect does. It also has guns, so it's firefighting. So
Right.
that kind
This
of
one,
makes a little Gears of War-y, but yeah. it still
yeah,
does.
this one you could be like a gunslinging
You could
bounty
yeah.
hunter as well, right?
But you didn't aim down sights like you did in Mass Effect.
No,
It was
right,
still
yeah.
turn-based.
No, I
on
like
that.
it better this way, but it was just
Same.
cool to have the option. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And
Mhm, sure.
yeah, really cool lore invented in that game for the Star Wars universe as well.
Mhm.
Um,
Yes.
Yeah. God, yeah. The
Choosing the color
sociopathic
crystals
robot
on your
is it for
lightsaber.
me.
Yeah, he was the best. Yeah, he was.
So
It
funny.
was so good. It's this one. So this one's really interesting again too. For to get in your box.
Yeah. What kind of things do you have? Preferences do you have to
So
select
it's an
for this?
RPG, which is one of our categories, obviously.
Hmm.
And it is also falls in the sci-fi category, which is a subgenre that you can select. So you'd want to have those two selected, because when you select RPG, there's obviously a lot. I mean, there's everything from cyberpunky stuff to sci-fi to high fantasy to mecha stuff. So it's like if you don't drill it down for us, you don't have to select sci-fi and you can still get it. But if you drill it down, it helps us to say, yeah, they would like something like this, or Mass Effect is great, both great examples.
Yeah, I think I like that one maybe a little bit more than the first Mass Effect just because of the IP. I do like the. It was yeah. I was gonna say about the year. The reason I asked for the year it came out, I just remembered it was because I was going to say that the sociopathic robot years before Rogue One and his sort of like the depressed android and that like this was the first
Alan
like Buck
Tudyk or
said
whatever.
it was like Buck you saying that made me think of it just like we didn't have androids that were just like bad guys like he just like is
Right.
you know what I mean like
Yeah, he just
They're
is
either
a
like
dick.
in
Yeah,
the
like-
background or like
Yeah.
in the Star Wars universe, they're always just kind of in the background as like kind of like helpers or whatever. But having like an actual
Right,
like,
this one was, like,
robot as the
fully
main
villainous.
character, yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
It's good.
fully.
Funny.
Yeah.
And for good note too, BioWare was on a tear because this was 03, Jade Empire was 05, and the first Mass Effect was 07.
Jade
Wild.
Empire is great too.
Oh wow,
Yeah, you
I haven't
could
thought
be-
about that game in a long time.
You could be like
And then
a
Dragon
Sith
Age.
or a Jedi, and so if you were a Sith, you want to compile a team of bad guys, and it was like you had a bad droid. That's cool.
Yeah,
He's
sure.
villain. I don't know.
You had a
That's all
bad-
I
yeah,
want to
they
talk
had a
about. He's
bad
so
droid.
cool. All right, that's awesome. Let's move on. We're gonna take a quick break. When we come back, we are so excited to splurge talking about freaking Metroidvania games. We'll be right back. Thank you.
Commentary. Yes, Master. Did I ever tell you how much I enjoy killing for you, Master?
Okay, we're back, gentlemen. We're back for a big, beefy episode. So we played Animal Well last week, right? And we talked about it as a puzzle game. We talked about it as a puzzle game because we wanted to talk about Tetris, but we also wanted to talk about Animal Well, and it's pretty much a puzzle game, but it's also, I mean, it's really a Metroidvania game, right? I mean, this genre, a subgenre of action game, it's a portmanteau, if you don't know. Which is when you combine two words of Metroidvania and Metroid and Castlevania. Most people point to Metroid, the 1986 game, as being the originator, supposedly, I guess, of this genre. But there were actually, I found, two games in particular that predate the release of Metroid that share some of the characteristics. Like each one of them brings a little bit of Metroid to the table.
Interesting.
The two games I'm talking about is a game called Below the Root, which is for the Commodore 64, the Apple II, and the IBM PC. It's based off this series of fantasy novels I found out. It's like a platformer. It involves some light platforming, maybe Prince of Persia levels, let's say, where you can run off a ledge and fall directly down, or until you get an item that actually helps you glide. But most important thing to take away from this is it's an adventure game that's non-linear.
Right.
So you play as a character of your choosing. So you don't have to be one person. You can be like young child, man, lady, like the
now
characters.
You're just describing Legacy of the Wizard for the NES. It's just
And
very similar.
You can basically explore this world that's, like I said, set in this fantasy novel, and you run into NPCs and you use commands. Basically, you pause the game and then you click adventure style, like choose a prompt if you want to, like talk or whatever. You'll interact with the animal and it'll say, like, I don't know, you can get on your knees and like interact with an animal. I saw in some footage. So non-linear exploration, but no combat.
This looks so like weird.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's
Well,
like
it's
it looks
Commodore, so it's
Yeah.
not
Yeah.
exactly
There's
Well,
no
like,
tour de
yeah,
force.
Yeah, that's
it's
true.
ugly, but it's also
It's actually
like,
pretty
kinda
cool
nice.
looking, yeah.
Like it's actually kind of nice looking. It
Yeah.
looks like a storybook.
Yeah, doesn't sound
weird
as
way.
good as it looks. But yeah, so this is a non-linear exploration game, but no combat. And then the other game is a game called Brain Breaker, which was made in 1985. It's published by Enix, but only in Japan for some system, or some computer, I presume, called the Sharp X1.
Okay.
I'm assuming that's just like a personal computer or whatever that was only released in Japan. So
That's the one with the really cool keyboard.
this is a side-scrolling action game with a female protagonist with a laser gun who's been dropped on an alien planet from a spaceship.
Been dropped on her head.
You move left to right and you explore this alien planet that's like populated with like flying robots basically, and you explore buildings. This is like basically the main mechanic. You explore these buildings by using these elevators. Some of them have items in them that let you progress to different areas. So and secondly, you receive permanent power-ups in this game, which is something that Metroid also is famous for. That is to say, you'll have something like that upgrades your laser gun for the rest of the game that you find. You know what I mean? And at this point in time, there weren't really a lot of games like this. Usually items in games were like consumable things, you know what I mean? Or they were like a key that you use to unlock a door.
Right.
So then that brings us to Metroid. So Metroid brings together all the things that I basically just said into an NES package that looks and sounds and plays so much better than both of the games that I just mentioned, which leads me into some of the principles that I would like to cover that I think sort of establish the genre that will become Metroidvania. So, and I if you guys, I'll list them, and if I miss one, feel free to interject. So, non-linear progression, a large explorable map, a single interconnected large explorable map that is gate kept by accessibility, like by receiving the next principle, which is permanent power-up items.
Right.
Yeah.
Did I miss anything?
Nope.
No,
in a
that's
nutshell.
pretty straightforward, honestly.
Okay.
That captures it. That's exactly what the genre is, you know?
So as for, I have not played Metroid. Buck, have you played Metroid in its entirety? Or Raph, have you played Metroid in its
The
entirety?
original NES Metroid, you mean?
Yes.
Yeah.
I had it as a kid, and it was very hard as a kid, especially because one of the mechanics that it was missing was a map screen.
Right.
Yes.
It had no map screen. So if you couldn't keep track of where you, I mean, I played it a lot just because I loved the aesthetic of it. And then when the Nintendo Power came out, they gave you the Justin Bailey code to let you play as the girl, because none of us knew that Samus inside of her suit was a chick.
Yeah.
You did that too because it started you in a different area with different upgrades in a different suit. So it was like almost getting to jump forward in the game, right? You already had the wave beam and other stuff too. So I don't remember playing the original Metroid, beating the original Metroid as a kid just because it was so hard. I did, however, beat Metroid Zero Mission, which was a Game Boy Advance remake of Metroid.
Ah, yes.
Very cool.
Raph, you beat Metroid in its entirety?
My only experience with the original Metroid is actually the one that's on the Switch. If you have like the like a family account thing where you can like play,
the Switch
that's
NES Online.
Exactly, That's my only experience with it, really.
Yeah,
and it is. I want to mirror what Buck said there. It is very hard.
Yes.
It's extremely difficult. You mentioned non-linearity earlier as kind of like a staple of the genre, and while that's true, it's also kind of like the illusion of non-linearity because they do kind of gatekeep you, depending on what items that you're getting. Sometimes you can get certain items before others, but that game is truly non-linear. Like it's easy to very much get lost in that game.
I did watch Bit Brigade beat it live on stage in like less than an hour, like 15 years ago.
Wow,
that's hard.
Dude. Yeah, that's
it was
tough.
pretty cool. That's the band that they extract the music out of the game. They play a version with just sound effects, so they were playing all the music to the game as you went. They mixed in a lot of Super Metroid stuff in there too.
Yeah, they're cool.
It was good.
So I'm doing this out of order. I didn't want to neglect the other half of this portmanteau, which is Castlevania.
Mm-hmm.
So Castlevania 2, also believed to be a progenitor.
Simon's Quest.
You reminded me because, saying the no map thing.
Castlevania 2 didn't have a map either. A reason why that game was so fucking hard.
Right.
Yeah.
This leads me to games that I have played, which are the two games that have solidified this genre, I say, in the 90s, which was Super Metroid, but more importantly, Castlevania Symphony of the Night. So we've gushed at length at Super Metroid. You can go see our Super Nintendo Carousel episode if you'd like to hear us just absolutely lose our shit over this fantastic Metroidvania. But Castlevania Symphony of the Night, we only have so much time in this episode, so I want to gush about this game for a hot minute. So this game is a PlayStation 1 masterpiece, and cutting to the chase here, I think the thing that solidifies it as the Metroidvania genre is that this game dips its toe farthest into the RPG genre as any game had, any Metroid or Castlevania game had at this point in time. Buck, would you like to gush about Castlevania Symphony of the Night?
I have some cool, fun tie-ins to teach you, to show you guys a little bit about this game too, as well. If you don't know who created it, it's obviously Konami. Castlevania Symphony of the Night for the PlayStation 1. Koji Igarashi is the granddaddy of this game. He's the main developer, the guy that came up with most of the ideas that happen in this game. Now, he was working at Konami already. He was actually working on a Tokimeki Memorial game, which is those like dating sim games, awesome. Right?
Wow.
So his girlfriend at the time also worked at Konami, and she was working on Rondo of Blood, which if you guys don't know what that is, that's Castlevania. Super Nintendo, we got Castlevania Dracula X. Okay. And in Japan, they got the Turbo Duo CD version of Rondo of Blood with
the amazing music.
Yeah. There was an interesting feature in those Castlevania games that I think when Igarashi put all this together that helped make this game. And that was starting back during Castlevania 3 Dracula's Curse, when you had multiple pathways you could go. And remember, you had choices. You could just skip Grant or Sypha altogether by going to different levels, right?
Right.
And so branching paths was the beginning of this. Coming off Simon's Quest, number 2, explorable maps and inside and outside areas. You had Dracula's castle and you had the underground areas and all that stuff too. It's like they were laying the foundation for this, but they hadn't put it all together yet. And then in Rondo of Blood, they went in a totally different direction with the branching paths and whatnot, right?
Ah, yes.
And so it's almost like they kind of he put it all together with this and with the really good story. He went, oh, wait a minute. What if it was the whole castle? And it was explorable, and he probably played Metroid games and understood the way that kind of motif, right?
Right.
But then he went that extra mile and added all those RPG elements that you were talking about. I'll talk about it in a minute too, but that actually showed up in one of his later games, Bloodstained. Ritual of the Night,
yeah,
which has a similar. It's the same freaking game in a different world, but
right, yeah.
It's so interesting to see the evolution of those two games next to one another, and the idea of what if map? Okay, what if choose map? Okay, what if big map and then choose one at time? You know what I mean? It's like
what if big map? You think you're done? Flip map upside down. Play all over again.
Yeah, that's the Symphony of the Night specifically.
Symphony of the Night is one that I have less experience with than the Metroid games, and that is just a wild concept to me, that the game just like flips on its head and you get double the length basically.
It's doubly wild when doing research about this subject and just really realizing how controlled a video game, a Metroidvania needs to be, as far, you know what I mean? Like the developer has to make a puzzle that is not too hard to figure out, but it involves like a geometric layout of a physical space. It's like like monsters appearing in an area after a certain time, but not before you unlock this thing, or like all of these things, like the interweaving of all of the aspects of the Metroidvania. I really thought about the complexity doing the research for this.
I think that a good Metroidvania makes it so that somewhere at the midpoint of the game, you really don't even have to look at the map, because the map is designed so well that you find an item and you're like, oh, I have to go back to this place. Okay, and then you just backtrack over there without even having to open up the map.
Right.
That happened a lot with Animal Well, actually. Just like, okay, I know I got to go this way. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
In Symphony of the Night, you get it upside down, like a right side up and upside down. And it's just the fact that it doesn't,
it works.
You're like, oh, I'm just on the ceiling now. They didn't, like, I can't believe the game still works, is what I'm getting at. You know what I mean? Like, it's crazy.
Yeah, that's true. But it's funny because the equipment system, the items and whatnot in Symphony of the Night is a totally different metric. Because the funniest thing about Metroidvanias to me is that 99% of the ones that I've played, or at least 90% of the ones that I've played and really enjoyed, I found are ones that where you have a gun, something where you fight the enemy at range,
Right.
like Super Metroid and Axiom Verge and a lot of those. And it was funny because at first glance, I skipped over, and I've gone back and played some since, but I skipped over some Metroidvanias that were melee based, like Guacamelee and Ori and some of those, and you go back and realize, oh, you don't need a gun for this to be fun. It's just kind of the way it was based. But then you look at Symphony of the Night and you go, you didn't really have there. I mean, there was like one gun, but you had spells. But this was all melee. This is all
Right.
melee
For the
combat.
most part, yeah.
Spells
You
and
do get,
specials.
oh man, you get awesome like demon spirits that you can equip. That'll
Yeah.
like they all do different things. Like there's
The
like
imp could unlock puzzles.
right. I was just about to say there's one that doesn't attack or do anything for you other than there are specific areas in the map where if you have him on you, he'll like hit a button and like unlock a fucking door for you.
Yeah.
A great
all the spells you have.
Metroidvania accessory. To
Metamorphosis.
you get a lot of the items had like Street Fighter style inputs that you could like you get a sword and if you do a fucking Hadouken with it, he'll like do a move where he teleports like halfway across the screen and then attacks behind himself. Not to mention the game, just the animation of Alucard. We've talked about the soundtrack before as well. This is the PlayStation 1, so it's the first time we get a fucking guitar playing the Castlevania music, which just lends itself so well to the fucking rockin' fucking really genre of the music itself.
So Rondo of Blood, the Turbo Duo CD version, had that also, and he really
That's why it sounds so good as well.
Really took the inspiration from that and went, oh my gosh, what if we just go that extra mile, with this as well? Because there's so many more areas in Symphony of the Night than any previous Castlevania game. It set that precedent for a huge map.
I think so. Super Metroid map is pretty big, but again,
it did.
Upside down, and just like I can't say enough about the rooms are one color, and then you go over them, and then they become another color. Like not all the rooms are seen by you at the beginning of the game. You have to explore them manually. That's another usual thing. You don't get all the map at once like you would like in Zelda. You find the map, and you're like, shit, this is the dungeon. Like it's shaped like this.
I gotta say the basically like the fog of war that sort of like occurs for like when it opens up the map as you explore it makes for some really great moments of tension. Like when I'm climbing up some sort of vertical portion of the map and I get to the top and I see two doors, one going left and one going right. I check the map and it's like I don't know what's going to be on the other side of either one of these doors. Which one am I going to go? Which one am I going through?
The Slink and Animal Well.
Yeah,
so
that's funny.
The you saying the jumping off walls sort of made me think of a segue into what I want to talk about next, which is that something you actually already said, Raph, which is that I think you said, or you may have said it before the show, some Metroidvanias, they basically they lean in it seems like camps. One direction or another. Basically, there are ones that are more RPG, more RPG or more platformy, I guess. Right. So modern Metroidvanias. I asked each of these guys to bring a couple of Metroidvanias to talk about, some more modern ones that we've been enjoying. But yeah, so Buck, what have you brought for us today in regards to some modern Metroidvanias?
So if you want to go more of the traditional Castlevania route, I definitely am going to recommend Bloodstained, Ritual of the Night.
Yeah.
Gorgeous game, first of all. This was actually made by Igarashi after he left Konami. This was the Kickstarter that he did, and I kickstarted this, and it was well worth it for sure.
Nice.
This is much more traditional Symphony of the Night, where you have items,
you upgrade your weapons, you upgrade your skills,
but you don't just upgrade it like Metroid. You upgrade it with an RPG.
No, yeah, like Final Fantasy or something.
Right,
yeah,
right. The way that it works on there as well too, and so that works on that side of the spectrum, and has the same. It's very, all of the vein of it is all exactly that, and it's like a 2.5D as well too. All the models are 3D.
Awesome.
Yeah, and the music was great. The story was great. It has multiple endings. It has one of those things where you beat it and you're like, oh, I think I beat it, and then you go back to look and you're like, oh, there's the bad ending I didn't get. Oh, there's the really bad ending I didn't get. Wait, there's a better ending I didn't get because there's like a hidden boss fight.
Oh shit,
kind of thing for that. On the flip side of the spectrum, if you're going down the Metroid route, I definitely am going to recommend to you, I love this bad boy, Metroid Dread.
Holy shit, that's the biggest
Nice.
fucking box I've ever
Whoa,
seen in my
dude,
fucking life for a
what?
Switch game too.
This is
It's so fun.
This is the
I love that hold on. I love the idea that the Switch cart in there, if it is in there, would be
Yeah.
this big, and that fucking thing is the size of your head.
This is the
That's
special
fucking
edition.
awesome.
That I loved it so much. I bought it twice. I bought a special
Fuck yeah.
edition and put it in a nice container here too. This is like a Super Metroid sequel through and through. The way that all the upgrades work and your suit works, everything else, the way the progression is.
The game's so bad.
The funniest thing I noticed about this game, though, in a good way, was I never got lost. So while it didn't feel linear in any way, it did a really great job of linearly pointing me the way I needed to go.
Yeah, that definitely seems like a Metroid trope, I guess.
Kind of thing.
The kind of thing,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? The
Yeah.
Guided,
Raph said it
like,
before, the
non-linearity, yeah.
you're of your own free will, but really there are some items that you can only get before certain items, for example.
I only got turned around one time, and that's because I didn't see the door that was right in front of me. I got turned around for like 20 minutes. I'm like, oh, there's a door right there. This is the fucking room I beat the boss. Son of a bitch.
That is like that is yeah,
Not even
sorry.
to get too far like ahead of ourselves as far as like the influence of this genre on other genres. I see that concept play out in a lot of different games now, like the Dark Souls games. Like the first Dark Souls talks about, it's basically just like, you know, it tells you, oh, you go ring one bell, you go ring the other one, but which order you do it in is up to you, and that's all the guidance you really get. And that's
Right.
You know, Metroid, all the guidance you get is just, I don't even know. It's
Yeah.
just
I
the
think what
items
makes
that you
these-
find. It's just,
I think that's what makes
yeah.
some of these really good is they really are, the name is very apropos because they are an amalgamation of different
right,
genres, right?
all the different
And
elements.
right,
and the
yeah.
third
New
one I'll
ones.
present to you was probably my favorite out of all of these, and it's pretty short too, so it's only shortcoming. And then that is Deedlit and Wonder Labyrinth, which came
Cool.
out a couple of years ago. That, if you're not familiar with the character Deedlit, that's the elf from Record of Lodoss War,
Yeah.
the anime
Mhm.
from the 80s and then again in the 90s, which is phenomenal. If you're a D&D fan, high fantasy at all, go watch it. It's absolutely amazing. This game it looks exactly like Symphony of the Night. Like the animations of Deedlit, like
Yeah.
when she turns around in place with her cape behind her, I'm like, they just like, it would almost look like rotoscope of like Alucard's sprite on top of Deedlit's sprite, the way that they did it. It has the exact same kind of weapon system. You can switch between bows and different swords as the different weapons. And everything about it feels like those like Symphony of the Night, and 100%. The music is almost as good, still pretty good. And then one of the coolest aspects of it is, either you guys ever played the game Ikaruga? I know this is not a Castlevania game.
The bullet hell
Metroidvania
game,
game.
right?
The bullet hell game
Yeah,
where you
yeah,
switch
yeah.
between white and black ship.
Great game.
And you can dodge, and if your ship is white, you dodge the white bullets and vice versa.
That's going to be on the Dreamcast carousel for me, baby.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah,
The Deedlit has a mechanic with wind and fire. So she can learn to wield both wind and fire magic, and there will be a wind barrier. You switch to your wind type, you can jump through it, and vice versa for the fire.
I didn't no.
Bosses will use that against you. So imagine a freaking boss casting towers of magic, and like Ikaruga, here comes a wall of wind. Switch to wind. Right behind it, a wall of fire. So you're having to switch.
Working back and forth.
You're having to
That's so
switch
cool.
between your types on the fly as the boss is doing things for you, and you absorb mana when you're in wind form and you get touched by wind. So it helps you build your magic back up. So you're encouraged to use your magic spells a lot in
So
combat.
cool.
That's cool. Damn,
It's
I did not know that. I've seen that game on Steam, and I was like, "Oh, that looks pretty nice." But that's a really cool mechanic.
And it's not super long. It was like 6 hours to beat, I think. So as far as
Nice.
Metroidvania goes, it's actually fairly short, but it didn't. I loved every minute of it.
Nice. So you picked a Metroid, you picked a Castlevania, basically, and then you picked a. You say this game feels more like a Castlevania. It looked more like a Castlevania.
Deedlit and Wonder Labyrinth.
Yeah.
it feels like DLC
yeah,
for
okay,
Symphony
yeah.
of the
So,
Night
yeah,
if they had
nice.
done that back in the day.
So that's 2 for Castlevania, 1 for Metroid. No,
They
Raph,
don't make as many Castlevania, Metroidvania
it's true.
types,
It's
right?
really true. Raph, what games did you want to talk about today?
Ooh, man. Okay. So, I mean, I had a bunch of games that made my short list that I played this week. I actually kind of have been preparing for this episode for like 3 weeks just because when I first started playing Animal Well, I kind of wanted to dive into like the Metroidvania genre. And I found that it's like probably my favorite genre of game, honestly, for solo play. But yeah, I played 3 big ones that really stood out to me this week, which was Axiom Verge. Very freaking cool game.
Yeah, I have not
heck yeah.
played that one. I know you
Ooh.
guys both wanted to talk about that, so I don't know if you want to share your thoughts. Feel free.
I
We've
saved
got
it for
time.
Raph.
So I mean, it's published and developed by Thomas Happ Games. It's one guy.
It's one dude. It's like
which-
Undertale. He did everything. The music,
Right.
everything.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. It's what would happen if Metroid and Contra had a baby, in my opinion.
Ooh.
Yeah, that's a pretty
yeah.
good way to put it. Yeah,
The music,
with the way the guns are.
Yeah, the guns feel very Contra-esque. The music feels very Contra-esque. The weird Giger-esque designs feel very Contra-like. You got like this thumping synth soundtrack, but then sometimes it just gets dead silent. And you hear just like wind or whatever, and it's so scary. Sometimes there's certain enemies that like will actually run at you really fast, screaming, and like it scared the shit out of me every time.
Whoa, shit!
I had forgotten. I was watching videos earlier, and I now had mentioned on an earlier episode that the bosses were so big, but I had forgotten that some of the rooms were so big that it like zooms out, and your character becomes like your character goes from Samus big to like Animal Well big, because the size of the screen is so big.
One of the bosses is so big like that that you basically have to hop on, and you got a gun that like it basically glitches things out in the world, and you can use this to like there's certain like glitchy like platforms that you can't jump through, and you use that gun to like make them become material, and then you can hop on them. Really wild game.
You would love it, Mac. It's cool.
Yeah, I think you'd like this game a lot. It's got
very
over
world
60
building.
guns, over 60 guns in this game. Yeah.
I saw Raph playing it, and I was like, "This looks cool as fuck." I was like, he was playing as this, Ripley-inspired alien character with this huge fucking gun,
this
like,
big alien
around.
weapon. Yeah.
I was like, "That's cool." As hell.
I've got the first one on Switch. You can borrow it.
Fuck yeah, nice.
When you have physical games, you can let friends borrow them.
Hell yeah.
There you go.
So the second game that I played was Blasphemous. This game
so hard.
Yes, this game is incredibly difficult.
Hard.
I guess if you're keeping track, that first game plays like a Metroid game. This one plays like a Castlevania game meets Dark Souls.
Yes.
It's got corpse runs. It's got basically these altars that you can rest at, kind of like the campfires in Dark Souls. It's got some of the absolute coolest death animations and coolest like character designs of any game that I've played.
Yeah,
the pixel art's gorgeous.
It's fucking like a 80s death metal fantasy fever dream. Like it's like
I've seen
so
it
much
called a
Castlevania.
If heavy metal is a Metroidvania,
right?
Yeah, like I've heard it called a Castlevania because of the weird like Spanish Catholic iconography throughout the game. Very unique looking, honestly.
Scary,
like just
even.
Scary, definitely. Like a couple of the character designs that I noted that were just absolutely insane. One, the main character you play as, the penitent one, a silent protagonist, wears this big pointy hat with a horrifying face on the front. Wild.
Yeah.
Carrying around the sword covered in thorns.
It's like that old this is what angels really looked like according to Evangelion, where they have like 97 wings and 13 faces and 3 penises.
One of the bosses is called Our Lady of the Charred Visage, and she has the appearance of a giant woman's face whose like face is partially melted and covered in burning oil. One of her hands is like this massive hand holding a rosary that fires fucking like energy beams at it.
Oh my god.
Wild game.
Jesus Christ. Castlevania famous for making you fight a giant corpse
ball.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's a giant ball made out of bodies falling off of it. More than once they brought that one back.
So I've got one more game, and this one is actually my favorite one that I played this week for sure. And that's Environmental Station Alpha.
Cool. This game looks bonkers.
Yeah,
by the way.
Environmental Station Alpha was released April 22nd, 2015, developed by Arvi Taikar and Rup Makinen, 2 Finnish developers.
Nice pronunciation.
Yeah.
Stuck the fucking landing.
Yeah. 2 Finnish developers. Arvi Taikar, he developed Baba Is You, which is another really cool game.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense now.
Right. Yes. Yeah. And he also, I believe, is the publisher for this game. But in this game, you play as a little robot who's examining a vast biodome sort of like space station that's been mysteriously abandoned. And it still holds signs of life, but it's full of like a bunch of cool little creatures and like robots and all this wild stuff and very cool environments. It's got a really awesome like aesthetic to it because it's very low resolution pixel art. The score and the ambiance goes from being beautiful and mysterious to just kind of unsettling and very spooky. And it captures the spirit of the classic Metroid more than any other game that I've ever played.
That's
The
pretty cool.
coolest boss fights too. Like my favorite boss fights out of any of these games. You got like a giant bug that you need to kill while it's shooting baby flies at you. You got a giant
Gross.
robotic scraping like machine that's firing lasers and bombs. Giant evil jellyfish, and the last one I was fighting was this enormous giant serpent that I have no idea how to beat.
Cool.
But yeah, that one falls into the Metroid category for me, and I've learned that basically of the two branches of these games, I love the Metroid side of it. I love the sense of mystery, the
They're-
sense of like
I
don't
feel
know.
like it leans though the Metroid games and that vibe that you're describing, the loneliness vibe, I
Yeah,
guess, is
right.
the
Yeah.
desperation vibe. A lot of
Yes.
people, online describing Metroid as like almost like the precursor to Resident Evil, right?
Yeah,
You have
I can
to
see
run
that.
around and
Wow.
find ammo for your gun, and there'd be times. I mean, Zelda obviously does this too, where you're low on health and it's beep 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 beep.
Yeah.
But in this
Hey,
game,
listen.
the background is very dark and everything is you're sort of alone in this 2D platformer. The only 2D platformer from Nintendo you've played maybe at this point is Mario. It's very nice, and then you come to
It's
Metroid
very
and
different.
it's very scary.
Very
And
different
there's
from
Mario
very
don't want to be caught trapped into this world.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that genre lends itself more to artsy fartsy games, dare I say.
Yeah, I think for the most part, the one that I didn't mention that I'll just mention quick because Raph
Yeah,
might
go
want to
ahead.
check it out is Shadow Complex, which they remastered
Shadow
a couple years ago.
Hmm.
Shadow Complex is very much so a Metroid game. It's dude finds cool suit and then like falls into this freaking giant base thing, and you're going downward instead of around basically in this game for the most part. This game is more
Ah.
like what if Metroid and like Halo had a baby, because you're constantly shooting shit in this game. Like every
Interesting.
room has troops and enemies in it, and so machine gun fire is constant. There's enemies in the background, like Donkey Kong Country style, like
Yeah.
enemies behind you kind of thing.
This aesthetically looks like Metal Gear Solid almost. Like,
Yes,
does,
very much
yeah.
so.
environments
Lots
look
of
like Metal
rocket
Gear
launchers
Solid.
and other things. It's very much so a Metroid game with like the upgrades and all of those kinds of things, but it's the total opposite. It's like constant firefight.
This looks cool.
Interesting.
It's an interesting
Cool.
take on the genre, right?
Yeah.
That's really cool. Shit, I'm gonna add this to my wish list.
It's fun.
All right, for myself, I've got a couple that I wanted to talk about as well. First one on my list, you know me, I like to break that mold. So I don't know, let's talk about this. This game is enough of a Castlevania adjacent game that it got a Castlevania based DLC, and that's Dead Cells.
Ooh, yeah.
The
Oh, nice
indie
choice.
roguelike
Great game.
Metroidvania, I'd say. So this one's kind of, I don't know, I'm playing it going, is this a Metroidvania? And then I'll describe why I'm having these if you've never played it, why these thoughts are coming up. And it's that this is a roguelike game. So if you ever played Hades or 100 million other games that have come out, you end up playing this game many
Dying
times.
over and over again is a mechanic.
And
Yeah, right.
so instead of being one big world, like we just said before, is kind of one of the precursors to being a Metroidvania, instead it's like a bunch of big maps that you explore like in a linear progression. But then there are portions, like there are some of those map portions that like are not accessible to you until you have played through the game a couple of times, because you collect like a currency that you spend during your runs to get permanent upgrades like Metroid. But this game absolutely plays like a Castlevania. This game, I was playing the fuck out of it earlier today, and this is a great game for me to play on my phone through the Wi-Fi or whatever for Game Pass. This game is so kinetic. Like it is just motion. You're just zipping through these fucking levels. There's a dodge roll button. So
that you use constantly.
and you start with a double jump. And so you are just like fucking zipping, zopping through these fucking levels, and you get certain rewards if you finish the level under a certain time, but you also get certain rewards if you finish levels like after killing a certain number of enemies. So every time you come to a level, you're sort of, what do you want to do? You want to try to jump through it really quick, or no, let's do, or it's a lot to unpack, but basically
that's a good choice though.
It is. It's it's a great Metroidvania that you can pick up and play and then put down and then not play for like a week and a half and then just start another run and be like, what items do I have unlocked? How do I get here? Oh yeah, I remember this thing warps you across, like I unlocked the vines. So now when I get to the levels where there's areas that you can only access with the vines, I can get there now.
Right.
Kind of like a Metroidvania.
I tell you what though, on Steam recommends games, or it tells you like you might like this game because you played this and this. Every Metroidvania on Steam, it always says you might like this because you played Dead Cells.
Yeah,
like every one of them.
A lot of weapons in that game. We really love all
Yeah.
the different animations for the weapons and the upgrade systems where you find upgraded versions or you can forge them in between the runs. It's like if Castlevania had a Hades, you know what I mean? And then they did a Castlevania DLC that I don't have, but it looks awesome. And then, pardon me. And then my other game is one that leans more into the Metroid side, the slow exploration based, not kinetic, upgrading weapons constantly, not running and jipping and zapping and zopping across tons of enemies. The other game I'm talking about, produced partially by Adult Swim Games, is called Rain World.
Oh yeah, good
Buck,
choice.
have you seen this
I
game?
don't think so. No, that doesn't ring a bell.
So this is another lo-fi style Metroidvania like Animal Well. It kind of reminds me story wise of Ori. You basically play like a little guy who gets separated from his family, and now he's on this planet where every
You're a
day.
slug cat.
Oh, is that what it is?
Yeah, slug cat. Yeah,
slug
it's like
cat.
a half slug, half cat.
It's a little guy.
Man-bear pig, half man, half bear.
Right. Yeah.
He's on this world where every day it has this like torrential downpour that occurs.
Yeah.
And so the 30,000 view gameplay of this is you start in a safe zone as him, and basically the game says like get to a save room before it rains.
Yeah.
Wow.
So you get to a save room, and then the day progresses, quote unquote. So you get the next day, you get a refresh on the rain timer, and then it just says like go. Much like Metroid, it's just like go figure it out. There are a lot of things a lot of things I really like about this game. One of them is the vibe, the Metroid vibe. You feel this game, where do I even begin? This game has an awesome, fully functioning ecosystem in it. Okay. So there are animals of varying sizes and carnivorous levels, you know what I mean? Everything down to like a little tiny fly that you yourself can catch and eat, to like a big ass alligator that like will fuck up anything that comes up in its path. And so every day you load into this game. The premise is to get to the next save room, get to a save room that you haven't been to yet, explore this map to try to figure out what is going on.
Food, because you have to eat enough food
to
sleep.
That's the second convict, is that you have a hungry meter, so to speak, and you have to eat.
No, I hated Snake Eater.
You have to eat up to 4 animals before you can hibernate, aka sleep. You can eat more, and then if you eat like up to 2 more, it'll save for you. It'll put them into the next day, so that the next day you only have to eat 2 animals. So there'll be sometimes when you like come across a bunch of berries, and you're like, "Oh, yay!" And you just eat all the berries, so you have plenty of food for today and tomorrow. And then there's other times when it's about to rain, because you have a timer that basically tells you in rudimentary terms about how long you have until it's going to rain, and you'll be like, "Okay, it's about to rain. Oh my God, I found a save zone. Oh my God, I need to eat one more thing." And then you're doing this frantic run around trying to find an animal to kill and eat. And then at the same time, you are being hunted by anything that's bigger than you.
Yeah.
I love these reviews and recommendations. I got to read this real quick. All right. Okay. Graphics. Here's the check. Select which box you would like. Graphics: beautiful, good, decent, bad. You forgot what reality is. Audio: very good, good, not too bad. Eargasm.
Is that what they're checking? The
Yes,
last
they're
one?
checking. Yes, they're
It's very much so like Animal. Well, when I was playing it, I was like, this definitely seems like a
Beautiful.
slight inspiration for this
I
graphically,
can't believe
and
this slipped under my radar. This looks
It's so
great.
good. Yeah, it
There-
just came out with a DLC like recently, like a big one.
yeah, where it adds more
Downpour.
little guys, I think, that you can play
Yeah.
as, basically, that have different levels of dexterity, because your guy, if you play as the survivor, which is like the default mode of the game, he's so sluggish. But
Yeah.
Oh.
I mentioned to Raph that I actually really like the way the movement is in this game, because like your little guy has like a very liquidy feel to him.
Yeah.
So there are
Yeah, it looks
times when
that
you're
way.
literally like Metroid style turning into a ball, but instead you just like and you like wiggle your way through these areas
Yeah.
that you might have like not even have noticed were there when you upon first glance. And then when you like do these big long jumps to like try to land in a little slit in the wall to go to the next room.
Yeah.
And it's very forgiving with like if you come close and then just like are holding left, you will like
You could
like
glorp
liquid your way in
Yeah.
there. Yeah, you
That's
can
fun.
pick up items and throw them. It's almost like the item, like if everything was the firecracker from Animal Well. So like you'll pick it up and then you can chuck it, and then it's just kind of like, oh fuck, you can't save anything like in your inventory. At least I can't yet. But you can like pick up a spear and a rock and try to attack the other animals with them.
You basically hold one thing in each hand, and I think it throws the one that's like on the left side,
Right.
typically, and then you can like switch them back and forth.
You can double tap, the X button
Yeah.
to switch which item is in which hand.
Mhm.
It's really fun. It's definitely leans more, like we said, on the exploration puzzle side than the combat. The combat is quite difficult, and most sometimes you'll start a day, and since the animal's AI seems very procedurally generated, you'll just
Yeah.
like start a day and there will just be an alligator outside, and you're like,
Yeah.
fuck. And you're like, guess
No,
I'll
it
die.
really-
You're like, just like
No, it really is. Like half the time, you're really just trying to avoid combat in this game. You're like
Right.
trying to run away from things, and it's given me like, like I played this game quite a bit as well, and it really makes you feel like you are right in the middle of like the food chain.
Yeah.
Like you're not at the top, not at the bottom. You're right in
Seems
the middle.
accurate.
Yeah,
really
very fun.
chill
That's cool.
vibes, but also kind of an anxiety driving game when it comes to
Yeah.
trying to get
Mhm.
somewhere. I didn't even talk about the map, but the map is crazy. The way you view the map is you have to press and hold a button, and then your character will the game will not pause. He will sit still and then close his eyes, and then after like a second or two, like the map will appear, but it'll be where you are, and then it'll slowly like he has to like think about it, and so it'll like
Yeah.
slowly grow to
That's
show
cool.
like, oh yeah, and then there's this, and it's 3-dimensional but it's presented to you in 2D.
Yeah, which
And
is a little weird.
so there's times when like a room takes you like behind another room, not next to it, behind. Yeah,
Yeah, it's very weird.
reading, I was like, this game's really fun, but it's fucking esoteric as fuck. Just like it's even more than Animal Well. It's just like I don't know, what am I doing? I don't fucking.
It's
This
beautiful.
is hard, but
And
yeah.
that game actually has like a big lore and like story in it, but you have to like discover it. It's
Yeah.
I haven't even really plunged into the depths of that game because it's got a lot.
Yeah,
That's fun.
Rain World, cool game.
That is cool.
But yeah, that's it for our discussion on Metroidvanias. A cool kick-ass
Yeah.
a kick-ass genre,
Cool.
a cool kick-ass genre of exploring, platforming, fighting, puzzles. It's got everything. I love it.
There's been so many over the years. I wish I could have been like a fly on the wall during like development for games like Super Metroid or Castlevania, because I was just looking back at like games that could have influenced that back in the day. Like I had
Right.
a list here of like Blaster Master, Faxanadu, Goonies 2 for the NES is like technically a Metroidvania.
Metroidvania
Almost,
adjacent.
yeah.
I mean, like there's a lot of those kind of games where they were figuring it out, and all the pieces like the rooms in Goonies sucks, or the in between in Blaster
Right.
Master kind of takes it away a bit. But as they slowly refined this down, I mean, so much so that they've remade how many of the Metroids now? They remade the original. They remade Metroid 2, Return of Samus. They made that for the 3DS. I think that was also a blast. That was so cool. And then they departed for a while to do like the Prime series. It's almost like I wrote a note here that like PS1, 2 generation, I have a pretty healthy PS1 library that contains like one Metroidvania game.
True. No, they definitely the indie scene of Metroidvanias have exploded in the past like 10 years.
That brought it back because
Yeah.
when GameCube, when they got away from it for Metroid Prime 1 and 2, and then for the Wii, Metroid Prime 3, Nintendo kind of sort of abandoned it almost, except for a couple of those remakes, right? It just didn't seem like a super popular genre. And you're right, the indie scene was definitely all of us loving it, or people our age that grew up to be game developers or indie game developers,
Right.
they loved it and they went, I miss this genre. What can we do with this? And then things like Ori and whatnot came out, and big studios started making really good Metroidvanias.
Last month like had a lot of big releases too. There's a lot of games that have been coming out. Yeah, it's been a good year for Metroidvanias in general, actually.
It's almost always the indie scene though. It
Right,
was cool
yeah.
when Dread came out, because it was like, thank you, Nintendo. You're paying attention to, like, it's like Zeldas. We don't need them very often, but
Right.
every like 4 or 5 years, give us a good Metroid game.
Right. That's perfect.
None of us played one of the newest Metroidvanias, that Prince of Persia game that came out.
Yeah, I played that demo.
Yeah.
I played that demo. It
heard
was
that
was pretty good. It was
heard that was
it
pretty
felt
good.
more influenced. It was in that blasphemous camp, that hard
Okay.
combat camp.
Blasphemous is so
Yeah.
hard. I played
Yeah.
it for about 2 hours, and I was
love
like,
that
this is a
game,
great
yeah.
game. I don't like to be punished that much when
Yeah.
I'm playing a
I kind
video
of
game.
love that game. I don't know. It's very, I don't know. It's good.
No, a lot of people really love it, and it's very popular game.
The death animations are wild.
Cool. All right. Well, I think that about does it for our conversation on Metroidvanias. We're going to go ahead and take a break. And when we come back, we're going to do our What Else You Got and wrap up our episode.
Fear has no form. Fear has no name. But now, fear has an address. Castlevania Symphony of the Night for your PlayStation. From Konami.
Okay, we're back. We are back. And we are at the end of our show. Here at the What Else You Got, where we're allowed to bring anything we want to the table. New video game, new TV show, new book, new clothes, new attitude, whatever you want to bring. Today, I'm excited. I shared the Analog Pocket, I don't know how many weeks ago. And
Hell yeah.
this past week, I went and got a game that I've been searching for a hot minute, a game that I heard about, I don't know, maybe last year. I didn't know it existed. I truly did not know it existed until about last year. And it did not disappoint. And that is...
What?
Mario versus Donkey Kong, whatever. Yeah.
Oh,
Donkey Kong for the Game Boy.
The one that, like, you think it's just a Donkey Kong game, but it is not.
It is exactly. I mean, look at this gorgeous screen. You can't. Ugh, this fucking green emulation on. Oh, there it is.
Cool. The
Ooh.
quadrochrome.
It's so sharp.
Quadrichrome.
Yeah.
Amazing. So this game, just like Buck said, it starts out with literally like the first 10 levels of Donkey Kong. So you're just like the arcade, like the but then once you beat that, it turns out that it's actually the predecessor to Mario versus Donkey Kong and fucking 1,000 other Mario puzzle games. It becomes like a game where you're still it's like it's using the
Super
mechanic of Mario, where you're just moving and jumping, but now the levels are not just a bunch of diagonal beams, or like, you know what I mean? They're like filled with puzzles where you have to like move blocks and then put a thing down and jump on it, and it bounces you extra high. And it's a really kick-ass puzzle game. It looks great. Like, if you were able to see, if you're watching this, that cute, adorable Donkey Kong that bashes his way through the bricks at the beginning of the screen with that cute music. This game is fucking awesome. And it's just called Donkey Kong. And so, like, I was like, I did not know this game existed. I was like, oh, there's Donkey Kong for the Game Boy. Oh yeah, sure, okay. And then I was listening to the Besties or something, and they mentioned Donkey Kong for the Game Boy and how crazy it is. And I was like, wait, what? Yeah, great game to add to the Game Boy collection. I plan on getting more Game Boy games. I also picked up a copy of Tetris. I don't remember if I said that last week or not in our Tetris episode, but great game to play while you're watching TV. Just old school Tetris.
Or Tetris 2 or Tetris Blast.
No, I don't know, not Tetris
OG
Blast.
Tetris.
Just regular ass Tetris. But yeah, that's it for me. Donkey Kong for the Game Boy.
Good shit.
Good shit. Good game. Buck, what else you got for us this week? Here, let's hold that up. There we go.
Oh, what is this?
I splurged and I bought myself a PS1 LCD screen for my desk, so I have PS1 on my desk.
So
Dude.
if you're just listening to this, the thing that Buck is holding up right now is a PSX, like the compact version of the
It's
PlayStation 1.
PS1 ONE.
And it has attached to it the sleekest, most form-fitting, what is that, a 8-inch screen?
No.
Something like that? No?
Probably like 5.
It looks tight as fuck.
Yes.
It looks cool, dude. Yeah, this looks really nice.
It's got built-in little speakers, and he's
look
just
at that
loaded up Castlevania Symphony of the Night. Absolutely fucking gorgeous this thing is.
I have it sitting like right on my desk, like above my keyboard, with just a PlayStation with just a regular PS1 controller here.
It is surprisingly small. It
Yeah.
is. God
I mean, the PS1 form factor. I mean, it was this console alone. I mean, look at this.
I mean, this is absolutely 110% take on vacation sized.
Aesthetically, and it plugs right into the back, so you don't have to use the AV. You literally just need power.
Oh,
and
that's
it's got a headphone jack and a speaker jack.
Dude,
Yeah,
that is absolutely gorgeous. Holy
this
shit!
this thing.
With the beautiful collection of PlayStation games, that's a good afternoon.
I love that sound.
That's
The best startup sound, arguably, honestly. Best startup sound.
It's pretty darn good.
Yeah.
Now you just hope that the disc load, the game loads after that, right?
Yeah.
But it's super cool to have that on the desk. Put that, play some Tekken or some Wipeout or something just really cool.
Oh shit!
Portable,
yeah,
super portable.
God damn, take that to a fucking bar or something. Sit with your homie with the two
thing
controllers.
is only like the screen is only like 25 years old ish.
It looks nice as hell.
Come on, guys, we figured this out. Yeah, this one's in really good shape. But that's what I mean by like I splurged on.
Yeah, that's fucking amazing. Nice, Raph. What have you got for us this week? Anything else?
Nothing crazy this week. This is actually like something that's a few weeks old, but I've only finally gotten around to actually installing the update for it. But one of my favorite games, Risk of Rain 2, recently put out an update where it's funny you mentioned this game, but the guy from Dead Cells is like in the game as a playable skin now. Which is
cool.
really cool. If you've never played Risk of Rain 2, I highly recommend it. I love the first Risk of Rain. It's one of my favorite roguelike, like side-scrolling shooter games, I guess.
Second one's a different animal, though.
The second one is a different animal. It is unbelievably fun. Just running around these different environments, trying to find that teleporter, trying to escape as the waves get more and more difficult. But now I get to play it as the guy from Dead Cells, which I haven't gotten a chance to do yet.
The headless whatever dude.
Yeah, the flaming head dude, yeah. I haven't had a chance to play it yet. I just installed it, but I'm going to probably do that today.
That's cool. About a year and a half ago or so, like a handful of us like discovered that game. Like we had played the first one, but not the second one.
Yeah.
And we got like 6 of us got like stupid addicted.
It's so fun, dude. Honestly, it's
and like I think you needed a mod installed to be able to play that many players in one game. So we did. We had like 4 or 5, 6 of us all in one game, and it was so frantically insane. But
yeah, like this game, I remember when like I was having trouble having a friend of mine play Helldivers because she's playing on PlayStation and I'm playing on PC. So we were like, hey, let's play this game. It's really fun, and it kind of scratches the same itch of
the
shooting
extraction,
a bunch of things.
combat.
Yeah, the extraction.
Yeah, I loved the old school unlock characters aspect of that game. Though.
Right. Yeah.
Like get to the fungus level, which is sometimes level 3, but sometimes not because it's random in that game. Yeah, and go to the highest mushroom and find this to unlock this character, like that kind of shit.
Oh, that's fucking cool.
This new update adds a new environment too, some crazy looking like forests and stuff. It's very cool.
Yeah, there end up being like 6 or 7 or 8 characters by the end of it, but you only start with like 2 or 3 and you have to unlock a bunch of them.
You start off with 1, which is just the commando, and then you start getting more and more. I love playing as the engineer, just dropping mines and like shooting like bombs. It's fun.
Tight. I played the second one, but only briefly, and it was by myself, and so I didn't quite understand what the fuck was going on.
Do you have this game, Mac? If you do, we can play together. Honestly, it's very fun.
It's on Game Pass, or it was. That's why I played it.
I've got it on Steam.
Yeah. Well, very nice. Very, very nice. That does it. That's the end of our show, gentlemen. We've reached the end once again. Hey, listen, thank you so much for listening, watching. Do us a huge favor, like and subscribe, okay? If you are just listening to this, I do have to press the flesh and say that you should head on over to the Instagram, at the Game Treasure Podcast. You can see all the little funny edits that I'll do, little clips whenever we say
The
something
YouTubes.
particularly funny, so you don't have to listen to me jabber on incoherently. You can just get right to the funny joke bits. You can also reach us at gametreasurepodcast@gmail.com. You can find links to all that stuff at linktree/thegtp. You can send us an email just saying, like, you guys are so funny. It's like you're like George Carlin. You're so funny. You're like George Carlin. Or like some other
George
comedian.
Carlin's pretty funny.
Yeah, I don't know.
George Carlin
It's
is
the only
funny.
comedian I can think of right now.
Great job.
So join us next week, because this is interesting. Next week, we are going to be getting ready for Elden Ring Shadow of the Earth Tree by discussing Soulsborne games.
Oh boy.
And the reason this is interesting is because me and Raph have been talking about this already, and this is a natural progression of the Metroidvania genre.
Okay.
Slides right in. Yeah.
It literally, we talked about it, the evolution from being adventure game to being action adventure game to being action adventure exploration game, and then now we have action adventure exploration game, very, very hard.
Hard as fuck.
Yeah. On purpose, right?
Yeah, true.
So that'll be really exciting. I have played something like 80 hours of Elden Ring.
Elden Ring.
Haven't
Yeah.
beat it. So
I played a shitload of hours of Demon Souls and Dark Souls 1 and 2. I have 0 hours of Elden Ring.
Elden Ring is fantastic. But hey,
try to put
listen,
some
we
hours
want to
into it.
thank Crunkwitch for the use of our theme song, Clash of the Droids. You can find them on Spotify or Apple Music or anywhere. You can find music. They're going on tour this summer. I saw they posted on Instagram. That's really cool. They're really nice and fun. And if you like nerd music, give them a listen. And then maybe they're coming to your town. You can go see them live and get them paid for all that art they make, because they work really hard. It's really cool. And of course, we would like to thank RetroGameTreasure.com, owned and operated by the Megabuck himself. Retro Game Treasure is a subscription service that sends collectors bespoke boxes of retro video games every month. You simply make your profile at www.retrogametreasure.com and you will receive games tailored to fill out your collection each month. Your collection? Yes, because your personal preference settings tell them what kind of games that you like to make sure that your monthly box of nostalgia is filled with primo games every time you open it. RetroGameTreasure.com, obsessed with video games since 1985. Buck, hit me with those new subscribers.
Oh, this week we welcome Catalin Manciu, Joel Garcia, Christopher Lafon, Timothy Isette, Robbie Russell, Jordan Price, Eric Linden, and Ashley Coolbo.
Thank you guys so much for signing up and getting games. My name is Max Stein, and I love the Game Treasure podcast. It's so bad.
It's so bad.